Dana Harris. I'm the editor-in-chief of IndieWire, and I'm really excited to be moderating this panel. I saw Captain Fantastic at its premiere last night, and I've been to Sundance many times, and every once in a while you get lucky in terms of your timing, and you get to see a movie, you're like, oh, there's the Sundance hit. That was last night. I want to bring on the stage the director and cast of Captain Fantastic, director Matt Ross. And I'm going to read the cast because it's a long one. Viggo Mortensen, George MacKay, Charlie Shotwell, Annalise Basso, Shree Crooks, Samantha Isler, Nicholas Hamilton, Erin Moriarty, and Trin Miller.
Thank you.
All right, guys, this is going to be a case of pass the mic. But I'm going to start with you, Matt. Tell the audience what Captain Fantastic is about, basically. Let's start there.
It's about a guy named Luke Skywalker. No? Oh. It's about a father and a mother. The father played by Viggo Mortensen and the mother played by Trin Miller, who are living off the grid in rural Washington state, raising their children in a sort of alternative way from mainstream United States, I'd say. And a tragedy happens which sort of precipitates a journey, and that's both literal and transformational for the main character. And then I'd say just in addition, it's about parenting and about being a father for me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you mentioned at the Q&A last night is that you had kind of had your own sort of experience with communal style upbringing. What was the real inspiration? Was it the fact that you've had this experience as your own when you were a kid, or is it in terms of what it actually means to be a parent for you as an adult?
So it's not autobiographical in the sense that it's not, these are not literal things that I lived through. I did live in communes in Oregon and Northern California, and my mom started one, and we lived in a teepee and things like that. But that wasn't the reason why I wrote the movie. It was really, I have two kids, and it was really just grappling with what it is to be a parent, and that was the genesis of it. Did I answer your question?
Oh,
I already
yeah.
forgot your question.
You're doing fine. So
4 hours sleep.
Viggo, what was it like for you in terms of having to find yourself in charge of this brood? I mean, it's like, because it's like it was, the sense of family is really palpable in the film. And what was that like for you in terms of, was that, what was that experience like? I mean, I know that you guys had to do some kind of like, family training of your own. What was that like?
Well, on paper, it was one of the best scripts I'd ever read, So many layers to it. All the characters were so fully realized just on paper. And I thought, if we have any kind of luck with the casting and with getting along during the shoot, this could be really special. But you never know how that's going to turn out. And so much of it has to do with, a director can have the best of intentions and even state them prior to shooting. But it's how you handle actors that really counts. And I have to say that Matt did as good or better a job than anybody I've ever seen in terms of inspiring us individually and collectively to do our best. He made it. It wasn't like a pressure thing. There was a real joyful experience every day shooting. No matter how some days were longer, more difficult, but it was fun. We had a good time, and with any movie, the casting is the most important ingredient. If that doesn't work, it doesn't matter how well you shoot something, how well written the script is, how good the director is. It's just not going to come together. And we were lucky. I mean, this is an amazing cast, and we had the time, which you don't always get in movies, to prepare. We had time together to do all sorts of things, some of which Matt mentioned, sort of boot camp, all kinds of things. I mean, everybody here can track a deer, can start a fire, can skin a deer, can cook a deer, grow things. It's we really went for it, and it was a great experience.
Well, I mean, rehearsal is a kind of a rare commodity nowadays, and I mean, and that's like really intense rehearsals. Like how, I mean, for you, was that something that you came to because of your own experience as an actor in terms of what you think is necessary to create a performance?
Well, you do a lot of rehearsal in the audition process as well. You in the sense that you have those many variations and you play with the actors. I would have liked to have more. For me, the rehearsal process was.
How many days did you have for that?
I think we had 2 weeks of prep with the actors. Is that right? But it was their days were filled with taxidermy lessons and Esperanto lessons and rock climbing and yoga for George, who my wife is an ex-yoga instructor, and George did an amazing job in the time he had. He started, when he got the job, he immediately in London was starting to take yoga, which is that thing he does, I don't know what it's called, but that's badass. That's really hard to do.
We had martial arts training.
Yeah, martial arts training. A former coach of mine, because I've done a lot of martial arts, I brought him up.
The music was
And
really
music,
great,
yeah.
because it's a way, there's not the pressure of you're not trying to memorize, it's not words, it's just connecting in a way without, the way it was done, it wasn't like, well, you're a musician, you're not. Everybody was free to express themselves and find the instrument that suited them, and it was that was a really fast way of getting to know each other. I thought, those sessions that we had, we got to.
And a lot of it is just getting to know each other. But I think in terms of specific rehearsal, I took each actor and we just spent a couple hours going through the script through their character's eyes and just talking about things, not result oriented, just making sure they did, answering their questions and suggesting or just having conversation about it.
And I mean, that's really amazing. It's like that in terms of. Stanislavski, an actor prepares taxidermy. It's not usually one of the, was there any? How do was that part of the deal from the get-go? Were the financiers always like on board for that kind of approach?
You mean in terms of training the kids? Yeah. Yeah, I think. I mean, I think it was pretty clear from the script that the kids had to have a lot of skills, and that came down to the casting process. As I said in other Q&As, I think that we looked at children from many English-speaking countries, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, and North America, the United States, Great Britain, and some kids had amazing skills. As I said, America has talent. We saw amazing gymnasts and just, phenomenal things. But, I saw Nick plays drums, George plays the guitar, Sammy's got an amazing voice, Shree does nothing. I don't know what she does. I have no idea how the hell she got this job.
I don't actually know how to play the harmonica.
That's true. That's the one.
Didn't do too bad though.
Yeah, he faked it. Ultimately, it came down to picking. I'm joking, right? I love you.
I know I'm joking.
Okay.
I know you're joking.
Okay, good. You were just close. That's why I made that joke. You're close. Ultimately, it came down to, I thought, just picking the person who had the spirit seemed to match their character, and who was the best actor, and then the other things I thought we could figure out, As Russell Barnes, who's our production designer, who's from New Zealand, said, "Movie magic."
So I'm just gonna pick on one of you guys. George, tell us about what did it feel like in terms of the family dynamic versus the acting dynamic? And it's like, and I could ask any of the kids that question in terms of what that felt like because it's the sense of family again is so palpable on screen. But was there a sense from your point of view was it a toggling back and forth between this is like what it feels like to be a family, or your sense of simply being an actor portraying what it feels like to be in a family?
No, it felt like we were a family, and I think we are. And we all got on so well, and we feel so close with each other now, and did rather kind of immediately, really. So there was never any, and also the way in which Matt worked. Obviously, there's a sort of technical elements of filming a scene, but also he was very open to kind of being as free as possible. So it just felt like we were playing with the family and playing with friends, and rather than being sort of actors going, right, you're saying your line, you're doing this. But then at the same time, all the guys are so good that it's sort of there was a real sort of professional awareness as well, where everyone was kind of very aware of each other as actors too. But I think firstly it was just we just really get on and really love each other.
One of the Viggo, your character's the father. I was really curious in watching this because there's a strange dynamic going on. On the one hand, it's so obvious that this man is passionately in love with his children, and at the same time, there's a line in there where he says that he really feels like he is at risk of destroying them. Where do you, how do you see your role, and how did you see your role in that? How do you see that character?
Well, I think just in life, in daily life, in work, but also in parenting, if you don't take chances in trying to do your best, if you don't, by taking chances, making mistakes necessarily, if you play it safe, then you're not going to have the same kind of connection. And I think as a child, I remember things particularly that my mother said or did that at the time I might have thought, oh gosh, why is she taking so much interest? Why is she, as a kid? And yet later, or I thought she was crazy, some of her ideas, and then now they don't seem so. And it's not like the specific thing she said or did. The feeling I take away now that she's gone, is that she cared and she paid attention. And it's that simple. You pay attention, as a parent. And as a parent, if you really ask yourself, am I really paying attention as much as I could or not? And by paying attention, by trying to protect, educate, hopefully give your kids the chance to think for themselves, which really comes across in this movie. There are several moments where you see, like that first test on the bus. It's like, it's okay, it's right now. This is your first test out here in the world. And my character has no idea what they're going to do. No idea. So he's as surprised as the audience and very pleased by the way they're thinking for themselves. So it seems kind of crazy. I guess in a way it's an extreme, it's an exaggeration of conscious parenting. But I think it's the kind of story that has a universal appeal in the sense that I think you can't help but see this movie and walk out wondering how you do as a parent, or how your parents did, or think about your own family dynamic. All of those things attracted me to the story initially, and it's very subjective. But I obviously thought about how I brought my son up, or tried to, and how I was brought up, and how my brothers were brought up, and as we got to know each other, and I got to know the parents. Matt has said before that when you cast 6 kids, you're also casting, except for George, who is a grown-up, and others almost are now too, but you're casting their parents as well, And that was really, really cool, and they were amazing. And many of them are here, I think. Do you guys want to stand up? Or?
Yeah, stand up.
Go ahead, go for it.
Raise your hands.
Parents.
Raise your hands. All right. I mean, Matt, wouldn't you agree that if they hadn't been so great, it wouldn't have worked, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, is there an auditioning process for the parents? I mean,
No, but there should be. We just lucked out. I mean, truly, we could not have made it without them. I mean, they were there every day, and they were, managing everyone's energy levels and needs in ways that I couldn't. And they made it possible. Absolutely.
well, actually, that's a really good question. I mean, it's like
Except for Vicky, who was drunk all the time. Sorry, I just saw your face. It's not true. Not true.
I mean, even as a parent or just as a person, I hope that this movie makes people feel like, question whether maybe everything they're doing in life is wrong. That's healthy. And you might think that some things are, and you can improve, well, maybe I should read more books, even something that simple. Look at these kids, they're reading, look at what they're reading, look at what they know, It's like, wow, just simple things like that, but also just really how what do I try to impose on my kids or even on my friends or my, workmates? It's like, how do we deal with each other, and are we able to admit when we maybe go too far? That's an important part of the story too, I think.
I was just gonna bounce off something that Viggo said about like questioning everything. I think from like the kids' perspective, and in real life, like kids too. I mean, you're raised the way you're raised. Your parents like teach you all your values and your beliefs, and for a very long time, you agree with them because you think that they're right. And so, I mean, and there is no right or wrong, but I just like you believe that that's the way the world should be. That everyone should believe what you believe, and so I think all the kids in the film, like their characters, except Relian and Beau, I think all the other kids were kind of oblivious to the way our dad's raising us. Relian's really against it. Beau's lived this life for so long, but he's also seen the other side of it. And so I think for us, we're pretty oblivious to it. And as we start going back into society, we're questioning a lot of the stuff that our dad's doing, because we didn't realize that there was this whole other part, and that maybe what he's doing is a little strange or a little weird. And I think that in like real life too, I mean, as I'm getting older, like I believe in what my parents believe, and they've taught me like great values, and I really respect my parents. But like, I think it's relatable, because you have to realize, like as a kid, you have to make your own choices and go through experiences to figure out like what you should believe. And so I think like Viggo realizes that like his kids need to be in the world because they need to experience things and come to terms with things themselves. So.
We're going to open the floor for questions. Do you have any questions for the Captain Fantastic crew?
Has anyone seen the movie? It's early, so.
Yeah, right there.
Mike, coming to you.
For the kids, were there any activities that you were like, I really don't want to do that? Killing the deer or the rock climbing? Anything that you're like, this isn't in my contract?
Maybe sleeping with ferns as your roommates.
On our camping trip.
Ferns?
Yeah.
Well, but before we started filming, we went and we slept in the forest and built our own shelter, and we made a fire, and it was
a wilderness survival.
A camping trip. It was a camping trip.
yeah. And in terms of butchering animals, I had never done that before. So Sammy and I went to a farm where we slaughtered a sheep, or it was slaughtered for us, and we skinned it and we gutted it. And experiences like that just put me in touch with where my food comes from, and I feel like so many people are robbed of that experience today. And like George was saying in the Q&A earlier, like with drive-thrus, things come to us so easily. So to have this experience of, making and preparing a dead animal, it was really humbling, and I'm really grateful for that. But one thing that was really gross was the deer that we ended up skinning was roadkill, and so it was cold.
Frozen.
Yeah, it was frozen for a few days.
But it rapidly ripened during our summer
Yeah.
shoot.
No, I think like a lot of the training, I was really excited to do a lot of it because, I'm 17, and if you look at me, you probably think I'm like 10 or something. And so when like I came into this, like I knew we had to do like rock climbing and fighting and like the martial arts, and I'm like, I'd never do that in real life because I'm so incapable. But this will be fun. I can do it in the movie. And I think a lot of us, we were like pushed past our comfort zones for sure. Like the rock climbing gym we would go to train was pretty crazy, and some of the courses. And I think we had a lot of fun. And as far as like Annalise said, going to the farm, we went to a farm. Where a guy had a bunch of sheep, and the guy who worked there he like did everything so tastefully and so respectably, which is how the characters in the movie do this. When they kill a deer, you kind of see Beau in the movie, how respectful they are of the deer, and how life gives life. Like, I mean, it's just that kind of thing. And so when Annalise and I got to go to this farm and got to see this done, the guy who worked on the farmhand, he was very, very respectful, and he taught us how to do things respectably. And he showed us how to do everything, and he was like, I don't know, I think it pushed us past our comfort zone, because I wasn't really excited to go and watch an animal be killed. But then he talked to me, and he was like, you know what? No, we do this like I have so much respect for this animal, and this animal kind of knows that this is what's going to happen to them because it's in this environment. And I don't know. I think it pushes past our comfort zones for sure, but I think we all got a lot out of it. So.
Of course, it's very respectful to eat the liver of a deer.
Call me out, Charlie.
Right here, about this woman right here.
Hi, I'm from Spokane, Washington, so I love this premise. But when I first heard about it, I also immediately kind of gutturally thought of Ruby Ridge and all the misunderstandings, which was back, I think, in the 90s, but where the federal government came in to arrest a man who was holed up in his house, and the wife and child were killed, a federal agent was killed, and just the disaster and the lack of understanding and that went between the feds and the family. And I just wondered if that played any role in the development, or if that was at all part of the development of the story. It was all I could think of when I first heard the premise.
Totally different thing. Yeah, I know about that. But no, that story and the politics of what happened there and the tragedy of that and the way that went down. That's a completely different. That has nothing to do with our movie. No.
Gentleman in the back.
What? Shut your mouth.
That's Shree's dad.
This is a question for Matt,
Greg.
and you and I have talked about this before, but I like hearing myself speak, so I'm going to ask in front of us.
I think the paycheck is on the way. You'll get it soon. Probably.
I love this movie. I love everything it's about. This is, and I think it's obviously very well received here. And despite us being in Utah, this is kind of a Hollywood crowd, and I'm grateful for that. But it is, in a lot of ways, very liberal, and you make fun of Christians, make fun of fat people. And it being an election year coming up, and this farce of red states and blue states. Do you fear that some people that fancy themselves conservatives and instantly just get turned off by things like this will not give it a chance, and that press and non-liberal people will not really listen to it? Because I do think you present it nicely. It's not like the choices being made always work out. But do you fear that some people will just be instantly turned off by it because it is so liberal?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot there. I think some of what you asked actually goes more to what I think you were asking when you were asking about Ruby Ridge and the politics of that. And to address a couple things you said, one, I think you have to see the movie to contextualize when you say they make fun of Christians. I think it's far more complex than just making fun of Christians. My intention is not to pick Christians and make fun of them. I think we live in a very Christian culture. We say Judeo-Christian America, but by and large, we're a pretty Christian country, and for better or worse. And I personally believe in separation of church and state, but I also think that one of the great hopes and promises of our country is discourse and democracy. And if the movie offends anyone, I hope we can have an intelligent and compassionate and tolerant conversation about it. I think great art, I'm not saying we made great art, but I think all great art hopes, or any art, hopes to have a conversation. There's a movie about Mapplethorpe who put crosses in urine, and that started a conversation. I don't think our film is that provocative. But, in terms of the politics of it and how maybe more conservative America will receive it, I have no idea. I mean, I could say that I think the film really neither condemns nor condones a lot of the behavior, and that hopefully, I think life is utterly gray, and that nothing is black and white, and that, no one, villains and heroes is bullshit. You know, it's all black and white. And so I hope that he is the villain of the movie and the hero of the movie. And I hope that, you know, Frank Langella's character, who's the father, who's kind of an antagonist to him, is the hero of is heroic and also villainous. And I hope that the movie portrays all these people with humanity and complexity. And if people see the movie, I hope they'll see the movie, because, you know, I think that everyone should be challenged, and myself included. And I don't know, you know, I mean, I think when you say the movie is liberal, I think he is certainly a progressive thinker, but I hope the movie gives as much weight to other voices, and that I hope that if you're actually politically conservative or religious, you could see other characters in the movie and think they're right, you know. So I hope it starts a discourse and doesn't say, because otherwise it's agitprop.
I think if this movie doesn't provoke a lot of arguments, a lot of, you know, I guess controversy, then we haven't done our job right. You know, this movie is, I think, in some way, an heir to or a cousin to certain kinds of movies that were made in the United States and from the period, kind of a golden period from the late 60s to the mid 70s. Movies that were shown, you know, all over the country that shocked people with some of the things they showed. Maybe some of the, you could, depending on how you looked at them, some of the mistakes they made, some of the offenses they committed, you know. And as Matt said, it's not a movie that's, you know, a left-wing or survivalist movie where you're, you know, this family is right and everybody else is wrong. You know, as a parent, my character is clearly seen to take things too far in some cases, to make mistakes. You know, and you know, all of the characters have their moments of doubt. You know, it's a very human. It's a very, as I said before, about the script, is very layered in that sense, and it unsettles you. You know. And I think that if people get offended and they want to express that they have been offended by this movie, then we've done something right. There's something, there can be, a discourse can be had, you know. I mean, in the end, as Lenny Bruce said, if you can't say fuck, you can't say fuck the government. And that you can say that from the left, from the right, from anywhere. You know what I mean? It's not an unhealthy thing to say once in a while.
I hate to do this, but we have to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you.